Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're talking about this Hitachi or Hikoki Metabo HPT 36 volt brushless circular saw. This one is on their 36 multi-volt platform. It's got some interesting things going on, so we're gonna go over this tool top to bottom, see how it stands up against some of the other saws we've tested so far. Stick with us. Alright guys, so this right here is the Hitachi or Metabo HPT or Hikoki 36 volt multi-volt circular saw. The model number on this one is C3607DAQ4M, right? So this is on their multi-volt platform, which means it only operates on the multi-volt batteries, okay? The multi-volt batteries are kind of like the dual flex volt batteries that kind of go between, 18 and 54 volts, or if you're in the States, they call it 20 volt max or 60 volt max. But the multi-volt batteries go between 18 volts and 36 volts, similar way, shape, and fashion, right? So if you're in the States, some people are gonna say, oh, that's really 20 volt max, or that's really 40 volt max, right? So whatever. The long story short is it can operate at two different voltages. It kind of works the same. A little bit of differences on how that really works is that, it's really got about 10 cells. 5 of them are in series, right? If you put an 18 volt tool, those 5 cells that are in series are parallel together, which makes that, an 8 amp hour battery, where if you put it in a multi-volt tool, all of those work in series, giving this 4 amp hours at 36 volts, right? So that's how that really works. Anyways, I'm sure most of you guys figured all that stuff out by now, but in case you didn't, there you go. Let's get into marketing hype and then we'll bring it in closer and take a better look at it. So this is the award-winning HPT multi-volt cordless circular saw C3607DAQ4. Part of the multi-volt tool platform, offers power of a corded tool and the freedom of a cordless platform and the choice to operate with either a battery or plugged into an outlet. It's cordless, it's corded, it's both. Okay, yeah, let's have fun with that. All right, so let's get into the important stuff here, right? Cut capacity, 1 7/8 of an inch at 45 degrees, 2 7/16 of an inch at 90 degrees. It has a battery, it's really, they call it like power, but let's call it battery life to do up to about 220 cross cuts per charge and 2x8 lumber. It has a whopping 4,300 RPMs. I'm just joking on that mainly because that's not really fast if you've been keeping up with a lot of the tool reviews we've been doing so far. To cut through building material, it has what they call a silent mode, which operates the tool at 2,000 RPMs, which enables efficient work with less noise. And with the battery, this multi-volt 4 amp hour battery, it weighs in at a whopping 9.7 pounds. So that's got a good thing going for it. The front part of it features a dust blower. It helps blow away the dust and to clear the path of its cutting. It's got electronic brake. It's got a soft start. It's got a really quiet, it's pretty quiet, especially running eco mode. It runs around like 95.8 decibels. It's got a heavy duty aluminum plate with easy to read scale. It's brushless, and like we already said, it runs on their multi-volt platform, and the tool is covered by a limited lifetime lithium ion tool battery warranty. It's interesting how they phrase that. And apparently it's got a bunch of awards from a bunch of other places, but we're gonna go drill into some of that stuff more interestingly. So without too much further ado, let's get into it. All right, so obviously this is the top handle saw or a sidewinder style saw. So if you're holding the tool, this is the business part of the side of the tool, right? This is the right hand part, right? So let's go over the top parts here real quick. Top part, like I said, handle or a handle here. It's also got another auxiliary handle here. It's got an ambidextrous safety switch. You can go either way. It's got a trigger right here, pretty standard. It's got a little bit of give before you actually, have to do something about it, but just want to point that out. Other than that, as we already talked about, this shoe right here is aluminum, even though it's painted like most magnesium shoes would look like, but it is aluminum, so don't think that it's magnesium. It's got a pretty decent blade guard here. This blade guard is, not plastic. This other top part of the blade guard is not plastic. It's got a dust port chute here. It does not include a dust port chute in the box. At least in my box, it didn't. That's probably a good time to tell you. We did buy this tool. Nobody sent us this, not a sponsored video. So it looks like, you're gonna have to just buy that one separately. It's interesting because, in the rear handle saw, they included a dust port, but in this one, they did not. And you cannot take that one and put it on here, obviously, because, it's on the wrong side. It doesn't even fit. So don't think you can do that. Other than that, you know, pretty blade stop on here. All of this stuff right here is pretty standard. It'll have, you know, emblems of like marketing, brushless here. And this part right here, there is a light. We can show you the light. But this part right here is where the blower action really comes into play. As I said, you know, when you're working it, it will blow right here such that it does clear the path of where you're cutting, the line of sight. So that part actually does help. But other than that, on this side, what you see here is you got a bunch of, you know, markings or engravings of measurements, so you can kind of do that. It's got a fence part here in case you wanted to put a rib fence on there. It does not include the wing bolt. If you did want to do that, you're gonna have to buy that one separately or get it with the rib guide. Sometimes you will get it with that on some brands. On this one, I don't know. I don't have it, so I can't say. But that's there. So on the front here, it's got a marked engraved measuring, you know, legend or ruler, whatever you want to call that. This is the blade, for some reason I can't talk today. This is the bevel adjustment. So as you saw there, there's no positive stop anywhere between 0 to like 45, right? But when you get to 45, it will, you know, positive stop there. And then if you lift it more, it will exceed a little bit more and get to its 55, I believe, 55 or 56 degree bevel right there. So let's keep that in mind. This positive blade stop here is really nice, obviously, because, you know, it's not going to wear out like a detent will, because you do have to lift it to get there. But just want to point that out. It does not have one at like, you know, 22.5 or any of that stuff. So just keep that in mind. All right. Moving around to this side here. This is the spindle lock. It's pretty easily accessible if you're a right-handed person, right? Because you just do this, you can work on it here. So that's really not a problem there. Other than that, there's not too much stuff going on here. The light really comes out pretty well right here. And as you can see with this little bit of a cutaway here, if you're a right-handed person and you are using this tool, the line of sight is okay. It's not great by any means, but it is okay. So it does help, especially with the light and the dust blower function. It does work pretty well there. On the back side here, here's the motor, and most people probably think, huh, that motor doesn't really look very big. The performance of this cell may not be all that great. We'll get into that in a little bit. This is where the blade wrench is stored. For every once in a while, you know, if you're changing the blade, you think, huh, where's that blade wrench? It's actually right here hidden. If you don't know it too well, you're not gonna know it's there, but you know, a lot of people just use impact wrenches or impact drivers to change the blades anyway. So other than that, all this black stuff here is rubber overmold. This stuff right here is rubber overmolded. And as you can see with the blade or the battery compartment mechanism, this black part here is not rubber overmold, but the battery slides in pretty easily there, right? We'll show you. Battery slides in pretty easily and battery comes out pretty easily. There is now a lot of rubberized stuff going on here, as they do in a lot of their tools. There's no like vibration dampening or any of that stuff going on here. Also the blade or the battery pack sliding rails do not have metal in them. But for this, I haven't seen any issues with it. Sure, we haven't had it for too long. We've only had it for maybe a couple weeks and used it for a couple weeks on a couple jobs, but you know, haven't had any issues with that so far, right? So that's what's really going on there. Moving around to the back, you know, nothing going around in the back either, except here's a spot in case you wanted to put some kind of fall rest system or some type of lanyard that is there. And the depth adjustment lock is right here. It's pretty standard, right? If you have big hands or big gloves, you may find it difficult to get in here, but it's a pretty standard mechanism and it does, you know, work pretty easily, just like that. Okay. Interestingly enough, the rail that it, you know, goes up and locks on is actually encased inside of this housing here, so it doesn't stick out right here. Just wanted to point that out just in case, you know, some people haven't seen that. And as you can probably see right here, there are no markings that tell you exactly where it's at, which, you know, some people are going to care about that, but for me, I usually don't use that anyways. A lot of people would just, you know, put the blade there and say, okay, just put it right against the material and, you know, do it that way. So for me, it doesn't bother me, but I'm sure it's probably going to bother some people if I had to guess, right? So now let's talk about this part right here, the control mechanism. But before we do that, let me slap the battery in here, right? So this one right here is interesting because this has a mode here, so you can get it enabled. Silent mode. When you press it, right, the blue light comes on, and what that means is that it will only operate at 2000 RPMs. So 2000 RPMs is less than half of its rated 4300 RPMs, but it allows you to cut stuff, right, and then keep the noise down. So I don't really have too much use for this. There's been maybe one situation where I've used this was cutting what is it, a bevel on a French cleat on one of the counters and things we were installing. But when you're inside and you don't have like hearing protection, or let's say not everybody has hearing protection, you could run it on silent mode and it will reduce the speed of the cut, but it will also be not as loud. So if you forget your hearing protection one day and you're cutting inside, or forget if you just forgot it, period, then, you know, run it on silent mode. It'll just let you work a little bit slower, but it will keep the sound down, right? So here is, you know, their standard on-off LED. As you can see right here, the LED is in the front. If you haven't seen it already, right? So you can either have it on, right? Or on when you activate the trigger, right? Or if you can have it completely off where no matter what you do, it won't activate, right? Or you can just have it like on and it will just stay on. It's interesting that they, you know, put that there. I can kind of see, you know, some people wanting an LED. I can't see too many people, you know, that have an LED on a saw that are thinking, man, I really got to turn that LED off, right? I just can't really see too much use for that. I would much rather them invested, you know, that hours or manpower or you know, funds or whatever into putting a rafter hook here, or you know, another or even a detent or a bevel stop right here or something like that, right? But they decided to do that. You know, it works fine. Haven't had any issues with it, but just wanted to point that out. And like I just mentioned, there is no rafter hook on any of this. So actually, let me point that out, because the main reason I point that out is because, you know, not just for the review, but one day I was down here after we did, you know, all the cuts and everything. I put it on the material, and while we were cleaning it up, we bumped into it, and lo and behold, it fell off this material and fell onto the epoxy floor, actually causing a chip in the epoxy floor, which was interesting, mainly because the place that it fell was right here on this edge. And as you can tell, even though it fell off, I don't know, what is this, maybe about 4 feet or so, directly down like this, right, and hit this corner, it is not bent. Right, you can, if you look at it, it's not really that bent. There is a little bit of play here, but it's always been a little bit of play right there. But if you look at it really closely, this little part is raised up a little bit. They have it up at a little bevel or a little angle, so that when you're cutting, it doesn't run into stuff. So I just wanted to point that out, because, you know, with a hammer, I've dropped so many things off this table, like hammer, screws, bolts, or whatever, and the epoxy floor was fine. But this saw dropping and hitting, let me just lock this down. Right here on this corner did chip it, and then you know, first chip on the epoxy floor. Interestingly enough, you know, I thought, oh crap, when I dropped the hammer, you know, it's going to chip the floor. That actually didn't happen. This part right here did. I hope you all caught those numbers, because those numbers did not go by as quickly as you probably thought they did, right? So let's go take a look at numbers. So remember, we run this saw and this battery on 2 sets of tests. First run the double stack test, which is, LP top notch 350 subfloor OSB 30 seconds. Then we stack 3 of them and then we run it again, right? So on the first run of the double stack test, 4.50 seconds, second run 4.50 seconds, third run 4.50 seconds, taking an average 4.50 seconds. Yes, I did review all the clips and all the numbers, and yes, they did come out all to 4.50. That just happens to be really coincidental or really consistent, I would say. If you feel like you want to go review the clips, go review them again. Moving on to the triple stack test. First run 6.18, second run at 6.75, third run 6.78. Not as consistent, but very close. Taking an average of 3 runs comes in at 6.57 seconds. This I classified as a framing saw, top handle, sidewinder style, RPMs 4,300, all that kind of fun stuff. So what most people want to know is, where does that put this saw on the leaderboard? So the total performance score of this saw and this 4 amp hour multi-volt battery comes in at a whopping 11.07 seconds. Bam! That puts this saw in 19th place, right behind the Makita GSH02, which is the XGT 2.5 amp hour battery configuration, and right in front of the Bosch GKS 18 volt 25C, which is around the Bosch ProFactor, using the ProFactor 8 amp hour battery, right? So most people are going to be thinking, wow, this is a 40 volt saw. What in the world's going on? Let's go take a look, right? So this is, really a 36 volt saw, but is right behind the GSH02, which is the Makita XGT, like I said, the rail compatible saw, but that one runs running a 2.5 amp hour battery, but that one runs at 6,000 RPMs. So look at the XSR01, which is the one right on front of it, right? With the 10.93 seconds. That one is, the 18 volt X2 saw, rear handle saw, and that one operates with a RPM of 5,100 RPMs, right? So let's go take a look at some of the other 18 volt tools that are, relatively close in this lineup. So the DeWalt DCS573, that is the 20 volt max flex volt advantage saw. We tested that saw with a 9 amp hour flex volt battery, and that one operates at 5,500 RPMs, and that one currently is in 14th place on the leaderboard with a score of 9.87. All right. Let's go look at another 18 volt saw. The next one up is going to be the Milwaukee 2732. That one is the M18 fuel sidewinder style saw with a 6 amp hour high output battery configuration. So that one runs at 5,800 RPMs. Wow. Okay, so there are some 18 volt, 20 volt tools that are a little bit faster than this one cutting, right? We're talking mere seconds here. On average, but the thing I'm pointing out here is that those configurations of those tools are running at a higher RPM, and like I said, the configuration is also running with a higher amp hour battery, which allows the tool to use more power to create, or draw more power from the battery to run faster or cut faster. So just wanted to point that out, because this tool runs at 4,300 RPMs, and that I believe is the slowest saw that we've tested so far, minus the Makita GSR02, which is a 10.25 inch saw, which operates at 4,000 RPMs. Yeah, the other closest thing that'll probably come up to this is probably going to be the Bosch ProFactor saws, which operate about 5,000 RPMs, and the Makita Subcompact, which operates at 5,000 RPMs. And that one is, roughly about 6.4 pounds with a 2 amp hour battery. But those are last place on the leaderboard. They're really small and light. They don't have big motors or any of that. So just wanted to put that out there, because that's what it really is, right? What can we say about this tool? We did go out and buy this tool. Nobody sent this to us. It's not a sponsored video. We did use it pretty well. It actually works, really well. One thing we noticed that when you're using it, you do get a nice sense, feel of refinement. It is a well-balanced tool. It's not like, not a lot of vibrations coming through when you are using it. But with that being said, would I go out and buy this tool again, or would this be my first choice in buying a new tool? I personally would not buy this tool again for a few reasons, mainly because one, it doesn't have a Rafter hook. Okay, it's not a problem. I'm personally, it's not a knock on Metabo or any of that, and is not too heavily invested in the Metabo HPT platform. Yes, we are getting more invested as we are buying more of these tools. That is a thing. But even if we do get pretty heavily invested, their lineup is just not as big as, you know, some of the other brands out there, which is really sad because I feel like some of their tools are really good, and I would really like to use a lot of their tools. If they, you know, they have, you know, good batteries, it's very well priced. This tool and battery and charger configuration you could get for about $190 brand new from an authorized retailer. So, you know, really good. It has a really good warranty, limited lifetime warranty, and it just seems a little bit sad that, you know, they just don't have too much of everything. And a lot of the stuff they do make is good, right? It may not be the best in terms of marketing or performance, right? Like some of the other saws that we've tested so far, but they do make quality tools with good warranties. So if they focused on, you know, let's say getting more lineup or expanding their lineup and just making quality stuff that way, and, you know, building, you know, good tools with good warranties and batteries and well priced, right? That would be a knock out of the park. I would right now say this is probably one of the best value saws you can get. If you're talking about value, this is probably the saw that I'd recommend if you don't care about, you know, battery platforms, any of that stuff. Mainly because, like I said, $200 gets you this saw, battery, and a charger. I didn't get a bag or any of that, but, you know, it's pretty good. You do get a blade too. That's what's there. What else can we say? Like I said, it's a good saw, not the fastest cutting saw. Would I go out and buy this again? Like I said, probably not, but I already have other tools. If you don't have other tools, you will probably go out and buy this. Closing this video out, let me know if you guys have any other questions or thoughts or whatever. Go out and do good work, and we'll see you guys next time.